Hi, welcome to STEAM Kids Virtual Classroom at the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Misty. We're excited to be here today.
We are. We want to thank our sponsors, Union Pacific Foundation and Greeley Station. They kind of rhyme.
They do. They do.
Thank you for making this possible. This month we're focusing on art.
Oh, this is exciting. Art is everywhere. Our clothes, on the layout. I mean, even...
I know. A model layout is 100% art because you built a miniature world.
Even the construction of a caboose is art, right? Engineering.
I think so. Well, painting it is.
Engineering.
Yeah. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about watercolor, and in your kits, your art kit, if you got it, you got a set of watercolors. Now, if you're just watching this, it's just a basic set of watercolors we're working with this month. You also have some papers in here, and we'll pull out the two that are cut in half, the two halves.
We're going to work with the half today.
Sheets. Okay. Yeah, there's two there. I just didn't get them. Two pieces and that. So let's talk about watercolor paints. See how there's some basic colors in there? And we have a brush with our kit. So this is the basics of painting. Watercolor is a little bit different than painting with an acrylic paint or an oil paint. And so I have this painting that came from collection. This actually hangs on the wall here at the museum. And this right here is an F3 locomotive, an EMD F3. They ran in the 1940s, late 1940s is when they were built, and they would pull passengers or freight. Beautiful locomotives. This painting is done by J.P., we think, Rowe, but even when it was donated, they weren't sure of the artist name. So if you know,
absolutely
let us know because we think it's an original and a one of a kind. But it's definitely a watercolor.
It was done in 83, it looks like.
Yep,
copyrighted for 1983.
So I hope that JP, we think Rowe, watches this show and sees that we're using his art. Watercolor is a little bit different in the fact that you build your colors by blending them together. And you create your painting with the lightest colors first. And you have to leave your highlights empty. So the white here is actually the basic paper.
There's no painting on
There's no paint on the white. So watercolor, you have to think a little bit differently than when you're painting with paints where you paint over the color and it covers it. So with watercolor, everything blends. And when you put a color over a color, it'll make it a little bit darker and it'll blend it a little bit. So we're going to go through a little exercise and kind of just play with that.
Michelle, can I point something out that I never knew until about 10 years ago about painting?
Sure.
Is normally painters will sketch on their canvas before painting it. I didn't know that. Correct. I always thought you either had the ability to do it, to paint from, or not. But if you'll see here, and you see up here, you can see the pencil lining.
And then at the top of the locomotive right there. And the use of a ruler is definitely used in this to create the straight lines. And that is true. Most artists do sketch first.
Yes.
And we're going to do that in our third lesson this month. We're going to learn how to sketch and then paint also. So excellent point. Yeah, so it's just a neat painting. Okay, so back to basic watercolor. What you need is a little cup. And in this cup, you're going to put some water.
Okay.
And I don't ever fill it. You only want to go halfway.
All right. About that? Yeah.
About that much. Okay. So you have this much water, and I always have a paper towel. And I like to double my paper towel. These are the kind with the Selecta size, so they're half a paper towel. And I like to have that. So I'm going to go like that. Yeah, and I actually like to keep my paints like right on the edge. And we only need one of the halves of paper right now. So I'm going to pull that over
But you know what? Making a mess is the fun part of it.
It is fun. True.
Okay.
This is how I set up at home. And that's just because, I guess, years of painting, I like to have my stuff right here. So let's get the brush out of there. Okay. Now, we're going to make a card first. So we're going to take one of those pieces of paper and you're going to take the corners and match them up. And then you're going to fold it. Just like that.
Now, I like to help really make that fold, I'm going to take a pen or a pencil and just...
That's a great idea.
Rub that there.
There we go. Now we have a card. So pick whichever side's going to be the front, and we're going to make a fun little flower card, and then you can give it to somebody. Now, these are dry. Do you feel them? feel your paint.
Yeah, that is pretty dry.
It's
There's
dry.
nothing on my fingers.
So what this is this is basically pigment
Okay.
in its dry form. And so when we get it wet, the water mixes with the pigment to create paint.
Now,
for
pigment's
us.
a really big word. What is
It is. It's kind of the base of the color, whatever. And colors are made of different kind of minerals and dyes. And so I say pigment, but really it's whatever dyes are in there
Yeah.
when they make them. And I don't know how this company exactly makes theirs, but that's the basis of paint. So you're going to get your brush wet. And then you're going to pick a color. And for this one, I'm going to kind of, well, in your kit, you saw a picture. We're going to do 5 colors. I know that's tiny, but we're going to pick 5 colors and do 5 circles.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing, I always use this as my palette over here on the side, my lid. I always put the paint in my lid, but you don't have to.
Oh, I like that because if you're mixing your colors, it's perfect.
So I'm going to do a red flower first. So I'm going to put a little water on that red, stir it in a little. I'm going to go over here and see how it leaves a little paint on there. But this surface is not porous. And by porous, I mean it doesn't soak it in.
Yes.
That's why I like the lid, because I can pick that paint right up off of there. And I can go to my paper and I can paint a little circle.
An example of a porous would be like our paper towel.
Our paper towels, or our paper itself, because
Right.
it's soaking the paint in. And now, if you want that to be a lighter color, you just add more water over here. And you could even take water and go directly over here if you want it to be lighter. And the thing about watercolors, you want to kind of slowly build it up. So there we go, I have a circle. Now, before I change colors, this is really important with watercolor. You need to rinse your brush out entirely.
That makes sense. And that's
So
why
put
the
your
paper
brush in
towel
that
is
water,
helpful too,
stir it around, use your paper towel. Make sure you don't have any of that color when you go like this on your paper towel.
Yeah.
Make sure it's clear. Now you can do another color. Now what's amazing though is that the water really doesn't pick up the color, so you can still use this water to mix your next color. So I think I'm going to do orange next.
Okay. I'm going to do purple. I think that's
Okay.
purple. I'm going to hope that's purple because it's not blue.
Right.
Yeah,
Isn't it
and I'm gonna
interesting how you
test it.
can't really tell?
Right, there it is. It looks good.
Okay, and I put some orange on there. And now I've got to rinse my brush. Make sure there's no color. I'm good. So I'm going to pick yellow.
Okay.
And rinse the brush and pick 2 more colors. Okay,
All
I'll do
right.
purple like you did. That's pretty. And then I'm going to do blue.
Now, if you find your brush is kind of splitting, I'm having a problem with mine splitting. I'm going to just wet it down. Oops,
Yeah, there's a trick to that.
and you just kind of squeeze it out and shape it a little bit. And then you can go back to your color. It might split again. And if it does, like mine is doing it.
Okay, so when you get it wet, go like this on your paper towel and pull your brush, and that'll pull it back into its shape when you pull on it. And you always kind of want to keep that point.
Yes.
Now my brush has kept a little bit of the blue on it, but yet you can see it's just stained the brush, but it doesn't, it's clear on the paper towel. So I'm good to go there. Okay, so I have the base of some flowers, but now I think we need some grass underneath.
There we go.
So after you're done painting your flowers, go to the green one.
Okay.
Mix up some green. And at the bottom of the card, just start putting some grass in there. And you might have to go get paint a few times.
Yeah, because that's a pretty decent sized surface as compared to our
is.
flowers, isn't it?
Now, if you notice, your brush will get lighter and lighter and lighter. And then when you go get more paint, it's darker again. Because there's so much more paint on the brush. And I'm actually going to get my brush wet again. Here we go, and just paint some grass. And when I pull it towards me, it kind of looks like grass blades. You could also just paint across if you wanted to. I'll do that at the bottom to kind of blend that in.
Oh, I like how that looks.
Doesn't that look neat when you just kind of pull it down?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have a really light spot, get some paint and go over it and put some more lines on it, and it'll look almost 3-dimensional.
I need some more water.
Now, what we didn't do is paint any sky behind it. And I'm not going to take the time to do that today, but you could. you could start painting your sky. Now, we're saving the outlining for last because we paint lightest to darkest when we do watercolors. And so I'm just going to let it dry a little bit more here. Ooh, dry. And then I'm going to take a marker, which this is like a Sharpie marker, but you could use an ink pen. You could use anything that's dark, and then you can just, I kind of like to draw different shapes on my flowers. So this one I think looks like a rose. So I'm just going to draw some like rose-like shapes, and mine's not quite dry enough, but
Yeah, I had that from, we can flip the card upside down too and draw.
Yeah.
If you.
So I'm just putting some petals on that one. And then this one, I might do him like just a flower like with a couple of petals like that. And the yellow one, he's going to be a daisy. So he's going to have lots of petals. Like that. And then this one I'll do very similar but with great big petals. Just to be different. But they can all be the same if you want them to. And I'm just drawing over those. And then this one.
Now I'm going to try and see if I'm a little dry. Let's see.
Yeah, we probably should have waited a little longer, but for the sake of filming. Now, what do flowers need to connect them to the ground? They need a stem, right?
Right.
Now, you can paint it or draw it. I'm just going to draw mine today. I'm just going to draw the lines down to the ground. This one's going to go behind that flower. I don't know if you can see, I went behind that flower. See how I didn't just draw over it? And then that looks like that flower's further back. And this flower can come down, and this flower, and I'll do this one behind again. And I'm going to have him go there. So now they look like they have depth. Then we can draw in some leaves. If you'd like to add
paint
some
the leaves too.
you could paint them. I'm going to draw them and then paint them.
That's what I was
Because
gonna
it's a permanent marker, we can do that too. So then you just need a little green. And just go back and paint in those leaf areas.
And you can you can make it darker. As you said, you can increase the depth of the color or dilute the color with water.
Correct. So this is just a really simple card idea. You could paint anything and make a card out of just a piece of paper and a watercolor set.
Who are you going to send your card to?
I think I'm going to send it to my grandma.
Yeah, I'm going to send mine to my aunt.
Yep, I think my grandma would really appreciate a happy flower card.
I love it.
Okay, nice.
I'm going to write like hello on the side here.
Yeah, you could write anything you wanted on there. Or hi, hello. So we have one more thing we're going to do today, and that's going to be a little more shading and playing with mixing colors just a little bit. That's so cute. I like that. That looks great.
Okay, so next we get to do
So we made kind of a spring card, but now I think we're going to go into fall because this is fall. So we're going to paint a fall tree.
Ooh. Oh boy.
Yeah, trees
okay,
are
we
fun.
went from a flower to a tree.
But I don't want you to be afraid of a tree because has anybody ever seen a tree that looks exactly like another tree?
No, I have not.
That's because there are no two alike. So whatever you paint, it's okay. Because the trees in nature, there's probably one that looks kind of like that. So don't be afraid to paint a tree. They're really fun and easy. And I'm going to teach a little bit of fall shading. So let's do a simple tree with watercolors.
Okay. All right. Let's do this.
So again, I like to just start with the grass.
Okay.
We just did grass. So now we're using the paper the tall way. We're going to make a tall tree on here. So I'm still just going to put my grass at the bottom. And if I add more water, it goes a little further.
I like how you can use the brush as like a way to also give it some texture.
Exactly. And we're just one color shading where you've got light and dark. Isn't that interesting how even that gives it some shading?
And
That's what's so fun about watercolor is the shading that naturally happens. Okay, so now what does a tree look like? Let's get some brown paint here. Mix up some brown. I had a watercolor set before this one that didn't have brown in it.
Uh-oh.
So to make brown, you mix orange and black.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, in case your watercolor set doesn't have brown. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a basic trunk. And most tree trunks have roots, right? So at the bottom, you want it to come out a little bit because those roots have to go in the ground to hold the weight of the tree. And then you're going to need more water. The tree itself is going to take quite a bit more water and paint than the last things we've painted. So just keep drawing down your tree. Now, once you get about halfway up your page with your trunk, kind of where you're at, you need to start putting some branches. Trees often have branches that kind of go both sides and then up, and branches that come off of branches. So I'm going to do a branch over here. I'm just going to start with a line and then I'll come back and fill it in. And I think I want a branch over here and maybe a branch up off of that one. See how you just start building up your tree. Put more water in there. And then we'll come back and fill out our branches a little bit. This one should have one here and a little branch there. There's no right or wrong. And then we're going to put leaves over these branches. So
Mine kind of looks like a hand.
that's okay. That's fine. That's great. And you know, you just kind of need that base to go underneath the leaves that we're going to paint, so that you know there's a tree under there, and it's easier to paint the base in there first than to try to tuck it in later. Okay, so here's what I did. I got lots of branches on my tree. Now, I like fall. You could do green and just shade green like we did down here, but I want to use orange and red and yellow and the colors of fall.
Great.
So I'm going to start with the lightest one because it's watercolor, so yellow. Now, you can do leaves in so many ways. You could dab leaves like this, just do little dabs in certain areas, or you could do like we did those flowers and do kind of a circle. So it's up to you, or just do kind of random shapes and spread them out. So do some yellow up here, and maybe like imagine the leaves are on these branches. So just start putting some yellow leaves in there. You can dab, you can blend. I think this is fun. I think this is the really fun part.
I'm experimenting over here.
You're doing your dark color first, which is fine. There's so many different techniques, and that's the beauty of art, is that you can do it in any way that you want to do it. Okay, I have put some yellow on. Here's what I did with yellow.
That looks fantastic.
So I just sort of, and you can see I just put a squiggle line of paint, but it looks like leaves.
It does.
So let's get the yellow out. I'm going to go to the next darkest color. So what's the next darkest after yellow? Orange. So I'm going to pick up some orange.
See, this way we can see what happens when you do the darkest first too. I mean,
yeah,
we'll see the difference, the contrasting difference.
So I'm just going to put some orange in there. And I'm tending to put it towards the bottom because the light would hit the yellow. The sunlight would come down and you would see the yellow leaves the first at the top, and then you'd see the darker underneath. So again, I'm just putting some color on there. You can dab it, brush it.
If you have a sponge or anything.
Yeah. And using a sponge like you're doing with your towel is another fun way to do this. Okay, I've added orange. See how I just put some squiggles right below the other squiggles?
Yes.
Pretty simple. And now I'm going to add some red. But now when you go darker, oftentimes you don't want to use as much unless you really want it to be a dark, dark painting. So I'm going to put just a little red on the bottoms of my squiggles. So get a little red paint, just kind of put it on the bottom there. And then you'll find that that gives you the shadows underneath. And then we can go back and add more of the other colors if we want to. Put some red in here.
Wow, I'm gonna. I'm gonna try something here. Just what I'm doing is I'm just kind of giving a little bit of a stroke there. I almost got
added
a
red.
rainbow tree.
You know what? That's great though. And you've done one that still has some green in it, and you could add green to it. So that's fine. Two different ways of painting.
Absolutely.
Do they both look like a tree?
They do.
Absolutely.
They do. They both
do.
look like a tree I've seen in nature too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
either way. And so
There you have it.
there you have it. And so this is same kind of painting as this one. It's just that we were a little more freeform.
Just a little, huh?
But it's the same kind of paint. So that's a little fun with watercolor, and we will see you next time on Steen Kids Virtual Classroom.
Have a good
Thanks for
day.
joining.
Bye.
Bye.